Why start the Cloud Nine?
Because I'm a complete control freak. When you're a business owner, you go to bed every night and worry. You take the weight of the world with you. People don't see that.
Where did that all begin?
We sold a villa in La Zagaleta off the back of that at 5 million euros. And it made us think, wow, this is really super powerful.
Yeah.
You think you've cracked it, and then all of a sudden something comes along and slaps you in the face.
So the criminal law thing I want to touch on because one, I think it's absolutely fascinating.
I had lots of experience with murderers and rapists and drug dealers. I mean, you're negotiating for people's freedom.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more valuable than that.
What I want to know is if you could go back to your younger self in that all boys school and you could give him one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't panic. It was only when I hit the age of 50 that I actually became a confident person.
Welcome back to the latest episode of Manifesto Talks, and today I'm joined by someone who is hugely respected in the real estate industry on the Costa del Sol, whose insights are very sought after in publications such as the Wall Street Journal and the Times. He needs no introduction, Mr. Sean Woolley. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Here we go.
Goodness.
We're in. That might be the nicest thing I've ever said to you.
I think it is, and I think it was kind of true, but I'm a little bit nervous. I've got to be honest. I'm a little bit nervous today because we've recorded a lot of it. Well, not me and you, but I've recorded a lot of videos, over 600, maybe 700 now, and no problem at all. But today, when you said, "Look, I want your story," I was like, "Oh, okay." And I'm a little bit anxious.
Well,
are you anxious?
I am anxious. I'm anxious about what you're going to say.
Yeah, I know.
Because I tried to do a bit of research. I normally do a little bit of research to find out what they could possibly say, the guests.
Okay, just in case.
Whereas this could be an absolute bloodbath. But let's go. For anyone who doesn't know you, give us a little bit of background information on yourself.
How far back do you want me to go?
Let's go right back. Where are you from?
I'm from the Wirral on Merseyside, so I'm a northwest boy, and I grew up there, went to university at Keele in Staffordshire, and trained to be a lawyer. I specialised in criminal law, so I had lots of experience with murderers and rapists and drug dealers and all those sorts of lovely things, which is great, actually great for life skills at that tender age of whatever it was, 21, 22. And I then left the legal profession, went to set up a management consultancy business and recruitment company in London and New York. So I moved to Yorkshire to be with my partner. And then I sold up my very small shareholding in that business, but it was absorbed by a PLC. And that gave me the crazy idea of relocating to Spain. And here I am 24 years later.
So I want to dive in, because as I was doing a little bit of research, I found there's a slight similarity in an experience that we both had.
Ooh.
You went to an all-boys Christian school, right?
Yeah.
There is a bit of research.
I think we turned out quite differently.
Yeah. Maybe. Fair play. What was that experience like? Because I went to an all-boys Spanish Catholic school for a year.
Were they all nuts? Did you have like Christian brothers and people like that?
I couldn't quite understand you go on the bus with the boys and girls, but as soon as you get off the bus, you go in your separate ways, and you could see the girls.
We didn't even have the girls on the bus.
Oh, no, there was no interaction, was there? Nothing?
No, absolutely not. So it was a good. It was I hated every minute of school.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't. I don't know. I was quite a nervous child, and I didn't really enjoy that. It was very strict. It was back in the days of corporal punishment.
We had praying 3 times a day, which really blew my mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
We weren't that. It was Friday morning prayers and stuff like that, but it wasn't for me. I'm not particularly academic. I really didn't. I would just enjoy kicking a football around or in the nets playing cricket. I hated it. There you go. It was a nice positive experience.
So the criminal law thing I want to touch on because I think it's absolutely fascinating. Why stop? Let's go further back. Why did you choose that?
Oh, my mother just said you're going to be a lawyer.
Right.
Because I throughout school I'd taken every subject known to mankind. So my A levels were different to my O levels. My degree was completely different to anything I'd done before. So I guess I was after fresh challenges. So at degree level, I took law and psychology because I couldn't quite decide which way to go. I should have been a police officer, shouldn't I, with that? But my mum said, in those days, because I'm quite old, in those days, you kind of went for the professions. Now I don't even know if I'd bother going to university. I think it's a bit overrated, to be honest. But in those days, you kind of, if you were at all minded in that way, you became a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or something. So I thought, yeah, law sounds interesting. And my mum just said, right, you're going to go and you're going to
Yeah,
do
because
this.
for someone who's not academic, it's quite the
It's horrible.
academic.
I know, it really
profession.
dry. Yeah. And that's why I did psychology as well, just to try and brighten it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I much more enjoyed the psychology than the law. But, it was kind of like a natural thing to go into a profession at that stage. And the legal profession was there. I really was attracted to criminal law because it was exciting, and I was still a young guy then, and I didn't mind getting woken up at 2 a.m. to go and rescue someone in a police cell. So, as I say, the main thing about that whole experience was the life skills it gives you. You're basically
what you're sat in front of or sat next to.
Yeah, I mean, you're negotiating for people's freedom.
Yeah,
and there's nothing more valuable than that. You talk about negotiating on a 10 million euro villa in Zagaleta. Yeah, that's a big deal, but it still doesn't trump. Going and trying to keep people out of jail, which is what we were doing.
So that comes to an end. There's a little Aldi stint.
Yeah,
there is.
That was very little.
Yeah.
I the reason I left the legal profession was because it was all the legal aid franchising system was changing, and there's never a huge amount of money on criminal law because it's paid for by the taxpayer. So it's not like private clients. You don't get many private clients who get locked up.
So you couldn't transition to having your own firm, or was that just something that?
Yeah, I could have done. I mean, there were discussions about partnership and stuff like that, but I was actually warned by the senior partner. He said, "Look, this whole industry is changing," and I think it has changed for the worse in terms of monetary rewards. And I found myself pen pushing a lot. Accounting for every 6 minutes of your day, and really, you want to be doing the job. Yeah. So I saw the bright lights of Aldi. What the hell? Yeah. And at the time, they were recruiting regional managers on quite good money, for however old I was, 23, something like that. And I went for the interview and got the job. And I ended up you had to move to where they wanted you. So I moved to Manchester, which wasn't too far away, but it was absolutely exhausting. It was one of the worst experiences of my life because they hounded you from. Well, first of all, you had to work in a shop. So you had to
cut the boxes, everything. Yeah.
And in those days, there was no barcodes with Aldi. So you had to memorize every item and the price. Yeah. So there were loads of old grannies who got shopping bills for like £2,000 at the end of it. And I'd have to say, I think I've done something wrong with that. But you had to do it. You had to do the thing, and you had to do all elements of the job. And of course, look, I'm not the best box shredder and the best person on the till, but I might be a really good manager. So it was just having to go through all that, and the amount of pressure they put on you, I felt was extortionate. And I just thought, you know what, I'm out. And I left for nothing really, in terms of I didn't have anything to go to. I just got a payoff, and then thought, hell, what am I going to do? And
because it's quite the jump to then recruitment.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Having your own company, or was it that joining?
I did a stint with another, because I always think if you want to get things right, you've got to kind of sample it.
Yeah,
I
agree.
And then go for it. So I did a stint with a company, and I'd always been, I think I was learning that I'd always been quite entrepreneurial and wanted to do my own thing. So I set up a company with a friend and a colleague at the time. We both left, and set up a company that was backed by a software company in York, actually, which was owned by a guy called Steve Hull. And it was great. We had pretty much carte blanche, and we were a small part of his empire, if you like. We did HR recruitment, and we did IT recruitment. IT, obviously, to help the parent company recruit the best people. But it was fabulous. We had a good time. We did it for a number of years, and it only ended because Steve decided to sell got an offer for the business that was too good to turn down. Our part was kind of swallowed up in the big deal, and I remember doing the deal in London. I had to be there to sign it off, but you were talking about millions, multi-millions, and I was like signing off my bit, and that was it. And after that, I kind of got a bit of a payout from the way that it was structured, And it was enough for me and my partner, Paul, to think, okay, what do we want to do with our lives? And at the time, we had the lovely stone detached house in Yorkshire, a nice little Yorkshire village with the local pub. We had 2 nice cars on the driveway. Yeah, we had it on the face of it. We had it all, but we were working really hard. Paul's he was a teacher in the UK, which is it's a tough job anyway. So we were coming home exhausted, opening the wine, well, having dinner, then opening the wine, and then finishing that bottle and opening another one, and then waking up and doing all the same thing again. And just the quality of life just wasn't there as far as we were concerned. So we had an opportunity. It was luckily at the time when property in Spain was still quite cheap. We had this crazy idea that we had enough money in the bank from selling up that we wouldn't need to work. That we just go and live off the fat of the land, maybe get a bar job, get a couple of dogs, and just, that's it. Yeah. We wouldn't bother with any of this nonsense. Of course, doesn't quite end up working like that. But that was the journey up to the point of coming over here.
How did you find the transition to moving over? Because as some of the videos I watched where you spoke about it, it wasn't probably as simple as you thought, or there were a few niggles with moving over, which obviously has now been a huge benefit, having that experience and then moving into what you eventually started doing.
I think there's always teething trouble, isn't there? We moved into a new development up in the hills of Alveria, and it was like paradise. The first 6 months we had to pinch ourselves. It was unbelievable. And I think because everyone moved in together to this new development, we made a lot of friends. The first 6 months, we moved over in the April, and pretty much up until the October, we were just getting drunk every night with our friends, our new friends, kind of around the pool and on each other's terraces. And I didn't even have Spanish TV, I don't think. No, I didn't have Spanish TV because I remember watching 9/11 unfold in the September, and I was in a Spanish bar down in the bottom of Alveria thinking, what's going on here? And that's when we first got English TV, because we thought, actually, we need to know what's happening. But no, that first 6 months was just great fun. And then we got it. Paul had a job to work in the EIC, English International College. So he was head. I better get this right. Head of upper school, I think. And I worked with Viva Estates because I thought, I'm a bit bored now. I want to do something. So I just got a job with Viva, and it was fantastic fun. It really was.
What were those days like? Because I'd imagine it was very different to the real estate world that we see now. Yeah,
there were only 3 real estate companies. There was Viva, Ocean, and Interrealty. And the way it worked was, if you had a client who wanted to buy a property, they would inquire, and you would physically, or the company would physically send the brochures in the post.
Wow.
And that's just that when you think back, you know. And, when I bought in 2001, I planned my trip about 9 months before. And I bought through Ocean Estates, and I said to them, right, I'm coming over, and they were like, yeah, great, and it was always leading up to that point. Nowadays, you're lucky if you get a week's notice. But those days were great fun. I think it was because I was kind of relaxed financially. I enjoyed it, and I was pretty good at it. So I closed my first, I think, 15 or 20 clients, and I thought, this is fun. This is great, And Paul was enjoying the teaching. The only thing I didn't like was that we had to be in the office through rotated hours. So sometimes you could be there all day Sunday. Everyone else, all your mates are on the beach, and you're there waiting for a client that might not come. So I was starting to think a little bit like, what the hell?
Was it the good old days, or was it just different? Because we get a lot where Paul, our digital marketing expert, talks a lot about back in the day, and I'm forever bringing him back, but he goes back and goes to talk about this, that they were coming on buses from the airport and just lining up almost.
Do you know what, the amount of times I've been to the airport with a name tag, Nash, and you didn't know who you were meeting.
Wow. And
it was like, is that them? And the first sort of 10 seconds is always hi, and it's always a little bit who are you, blah, blah, blah. The worst time was when I actually picked up the wrong client.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I picked up a client. I don't know. I had the name, and they came to me and said, "Hello." And it wasn't my client. And we ended up halfway to Marbella, and I get a call. I don't know which agency it was from. I get a call from the other agency saying, "I think you've got our client, and we've got yours."
No.
So the airport flyby system wasn't completely foolproof. But that's what we did. We had the client. They would come for 3 or 4 days, and they'd be with you you know, and you would tour them around. And in those days, it was very much new developments because there wasn't a huge amount of resale stock, and the new developments, there was a lot of them, and it was a bit like vending rather than selling, actually. You know, as long as you got on with the client and you knew your product, it was a case of, right, which one of these 8 that you've seen do you want?
Yeah.
And you'd sit down and work it out, and then eventually you'd have maybe a short list of 2 or 3. You take them back the day before they were due to leave. You take them to the lawyer. You decide, job done, next. And it became a bit of a conveyor belt. Yeah. So yeah, Paul's right about the fact that it's, you know, it was the good old days because it seemed easy. Prices were cheap, so there was an incentive for people to buy. It wasn't like, oh, I need to go home and think about this. It was, everybody wanted a piece of Spain, like I wanted a piece of Spain. You know, EasyJet, Ryanair, you know, they'd all come into play. It was cheap to get here. People had a bit more disposable income. It was, you know, credit was fairly simple. So a lot of people decided, actually, yeah, why not?
So why take the transition to starting your own thing? Why start Cloud9?
Because I'm a complete control freak. I think that's the bottom line. No, I think that I actually, when I left Viva, I helped their sales director set up an investment property company called Arena Investment Property, which was great fun. And I had a little bit more authority and I could do more things in that company. But I found that I was introducing most of the clients myself from my own sources, and I was getting a percentage, which was okay, but it wasn't
Well, it
much.
could be, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, you know what, why not set it up? And Paul, my partner, who's naturally probably quite cautious, was like, no, you can't, you know, you're onto a good thing here. Why, what are you doing? Yeah. And I said, no, come on. And I remember, you know, we set it up, and I was literally working from our second bedroom on an old battered PC. And it was when, I think, God, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? I think it was when the internet was starting to really flourish. And it was magic, because I'd be on the phone to clients and they'd buy over the phone, and I just thought, wow. And I was earning probably 4 times, 5 times more money than I was previously.
It's tough, isn't it? Because when you deal with the established agencies, etc., there's always a term of, well, you've got the cowboys working from their back bedroom, right? A lot of them, which are now the heavy hitters, the most established ones, they probably started like that.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a bit of a short-term memory here of, let's remember where you started from.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And there is a bit of snobbery about the real estate industry, like you say. And I think unless you're particularly well capitalized, normally by other people, that's how you do start.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing is, there's no barriers to entry here. There's no regulation. So you can do that and get away with it. I think it's probably more difficult now because there's so many of us that I think people do say, hey, you know, have you got an office? Have you got, you know, how long have you been in business? But in those days, you know, it was a free for all, really, and it was good. It was good fun.
Did you ever imagine it was going to turn into what it has become, or was it ever the plan to turn it into what it is now?
I don't think. I mean, we're not a particularly big business, so I think we probably look a little bit bigger than we are because we've got quite a big online and social presence. Yeah, but we're not a big business. I've never wanted to become a big business. I've seen the likes of Viva, the likes of Ocean, the likes of Darren McAntony set up a fantastic business, but offices all along the coast, and then the stress that goes with that. And I think in a cyclical market like the Marbella property market, you've got to be really careful. And this is something I've learned. You've got to be really careful not to overexpose yourself.
Sustainability, really.
Yeah, you know, and I think in those days, if you had a good year, you'd go and buy a Porsche. Now I would never do that, because you just don't know what's around the corner. And I think as a business owner, you start thinking, okay, this is what I want to earn every year. If I have a year where I earn this, then do you know what? That bit goes in the bank. Yeah. And if I have a year where it does this, at least I've got money in the bank to help me out. And that's something I've learned. And I think that comes with maturity as well, because obviously if you're earning, I don't know, say €250,000 or something a year, and you only need to spend 100,000 on yourself, you are going to go out and buy a few toys, aren't you? But I wouldn't necessarily do that now.
I seek a lot of advice from people like yourself, etc. And someone's always said, look, don't get too high in the highs, and don't let the lows, you know, let you get too low. So I think it's something to live by. What I'd like to know is there must have been some challenges at the start, something that you remember that for people starting out in their business career now, they can go, well, at least, you know, if he's got to where he is now, at least he faced some difficulty.
there's always difficulties. What I did was I got into bed, metaphorically, with a company that was starting out a property portal, and it was called I Want a Property in Spain.com or .co.
Self-explanatory.
Exactly. Yeah, in those days it was great because Google just picked that up, and they became very quickly number one on Google because it was easy in those days. You'd write a page of script and you put it on the next day. You're number one for a particular area or something like that. And they were based in the UK, actually just down the road from where I was from, and they wanted an agent on the Costa del Sol, and they saw that we were moving into the online world. We were one of the very first companies, I think, to have a proper web presence, and that's how we did business. So they asked us to become their agent on the Costa del Sol, and we did, and that was our main lead supplier. And I thought, oh, okay, this is fantastic. This is great. We had to pay them away a certain amount, but it helped me to grow my business. But I was always thinking, oh, what if I fall out with these guys? What if there's a problem? All of a sudden, that's maybe 70% of my revenue is gone overnight. So I set up on the side another portal.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, I know. Bold, which was great as well. And that, again, fed us very nicely for a number of years. But in terms of problems, there's always problems, aren't there? You're in business, you know that you think you've cracked it, and then all of a sudden something comes along and slaps you in the face, and you're like,
I feel that, yeah.
Just give me a break for a week. Just give me a break. There's always someone not doing business in the way that you want them to do, or there's a member of staff moaning about something inconsequential, and you're like, really? And I think when you're a business owner, I think it's underestimated because, I see this all the time. I see a lot of amazing salespeople become business owners, and I always say to them, why? Why are you doing this? Because a lot of them fail because they're amazing salespeople, some of the best in the world, but they don't necessarily know how to run a business. So I can't cook. I wouldn't go and work for Greg's baking cakes and pastries and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
No, I completely agree.
I think when you're a business owner, you go to bed every night and worry. And I think that's underestimated. You take the weight of the world with you, and you wake up with the weight of the world, and people don't see that. They see a little bit of glory now and again when things are going well, but they don't see the utter panic that goes on under the surface when you can't afford to pay the wages, or you can't, you think the whole thing's going to fall down like a pack of cards, and people don't see that.
No, I think there's a lot to be said for the pressure of the fact that if things don't go well, people are not getting paid at the end of the month. And I don't think people can quite comprehend the stress that puts on.
I mean, the amount of, sounds a bit criminal, but the amount of money we've had to move around over the years to make sure that there's enough in that one to pay that person, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Oh, there are times when you think, if only you knew.
Yeah, exactly. And all people see is, but that's, when we were, in those days, we had everything chucked at us. I mean, we had a bit of fun up until obviously the financial crisis, which came around 2008. So from 2002, which is when I started the business, to 2008, it was good fun. It was great. And then, of course, the first big challenge was the credit crunch, when the whole thing just collapsed overnight.
I want to take it in a slightly different direction and talk about the LPA, because as I was doing my research,
very good,
I saw a video that says I was wrong about the LPA, right? And I would say someone that was, I'm not going to say outspoken, but someone who potentially was a voice querying it, now is actually a voice that would be one of the faces of it. So certainly on the podcast.
I'm on the committee.
There you are.
Yeah, the LPA is an interesting one. In fact, I'm going through a bit of a battle, or about to embark on a battle, and the LPA are going to be, I hope, very supportive of what I'm doing. The LPA is a weird one because I always saw them as this group of posh agents, mainly Marbella, Golden Mile, a little bit like a cabal, and you could knock on the door, try and get, can I come in and play? No.
All boys club.
Exactly, and very Spanish.
Yeah.
And so I always thought, when you feel you don't belong, you kind of go, well, stuff them, And so I always had that feeling that it's not for me, so I'll actually rail against it. And then, what happened was I was stupidly, they invited me in to give a little presentation about marketing. And I went along, And I think if you ask any of them that were there, they'd probably say that I was arrogant, angry, and a bit out of place.
I know you well then.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll hold my hands up to all three, because I went in there and I wanted to shock them.
Yeah.
Because I was frustrated with them. And I felt that, my God, all that talent in that room, all these major players in the real estate industry in Marbella, are not doing anything with it. And I think the problem was that, you've got a lot of big characters, big egos, and they didn't really know where to go with it. Yeah. They knew what they kind of should be, but didn't know how to get there. So they asked me to go in and just give them a few tips. And I went in and I basically wrote a little marketing plan. So look, we need to be telling buyers and sellers about the LPA. Yeah. We, forget all this, we are amazing, we're great. Ooh, we need to actually get our message across. And the way to do this is A, B, and C. And I said that they were disjointed and that they were all over the place and their marketing sucks. And I couldn't have abused them more. And I walked out of there and they were kind of like a little bit windswept after it. And that was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a whatever it is. So they invited me back to join. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I can do something if I'm in rather than out. And now I'm on the committee and I passionately believe in it. Because I think, someone said to me the other day, there's 5,000 agents on the Costa del Sol or agencies, which is nuts. It's absolutely incredible for the geographical area. And there's 100 of us. The LPA has 100 members. And we worked out the other day, we probably account for between 50 and 70% of transaction value.
Wow.
So we're a smallish group of major players. And what I'm saying to clients now who come to us is, look, if you don't like us or you choose not to work with us, absolutely fine, of course. But the only piece of advice I want you to take, whoever you do choose, make sure they're an LPA member, because it's the only safeguard you've got in an unregulated market. It's the only safeguard you've got of any sort of quality
accountability
control,
as well.
Accountability, ethics. And that's a big thing. When you're spending 500,000, 1 million, 10 million euros, you kind of want someone who's been around, knows what they're doing, has respect from their peers, and works by a code of conduct. If not, then fine, go and choose one of the other 4,900. But best of luck when there's a problem.
Yeah, I agree. Talking about respected, I find it absolutely fascinating when I was reading up that you've been asked to do the articles in publications such as the Wall Street Journal. How does that come about? Because that's actually quite a prominent thing in your business, I would imagine. From the outside, I go, hang on, this positions you massively as the voice and the authority in the industry. Yeah,
and I use it as part of my email signature. Why not?
No.
And I think, do you know what? I think when they see you, and they see you online, and they see you on YouTube, and they see you on socials as being active, and also delivering a message that they feel comfortable with as well, then they approach you. I don't think they approach everybody because of the style of some agents, but I think they're comfortable with me because they probably feel like I've got a professional background. I can talk fairly comfortably, not in any other language, but I can talk.
How does something like that come about?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I mean, we have a marketing company. Georgina Shaw does some of our marketing and PR. Yeah, and so she is always on the lookout for opportunities. Nice. But some of them just come your way. I mean, the TV ones are the interesting ones.
You beat me to that, but that's incredible. Seeing you on the news.
I know.
For the right reasons.
How cool was that? So this was when there was all the talk about I think it was when the golden visa was ending. Yeah. And so GB News were the first ones. They contacted us and said, do you mind going on the news, one of the news shows today at 3:00 in the afternoon? So I stupidly said, yeah, fine. Yeah. And I had no idea it was like a live broadcast, and they prep you up, and you'd be there in your home going, and then Paul would be watching it on the TV like, oh, you're on, shut up. And they asked about the golden visa thing. I don't think I gave them what they wanted, because I think what they wanted me to say was, oh, it's terrible, the Brits are packing up, there's trails.
Yeah, they wanted the shock value. Yeah, of course.
And I get that, but I didn't give it to them. But on the back of that, Sky News contacted me almost like minutes later and said, will you do the Kay Burley show I thought, oh, Christ, she's a bit of a dragon, isn't she, Kay Burley? I'm sure she's very good. And Darren, who I work with, I think knows of Kay Burley, and he said, oh God, do you want me to do it? I'm like, no, fuck off. Yeah. But it didn't happen because I think they realised in their morning edit meeting that there's no story.
No.
So I was gutted. I've quite fancied a bit of that.
Did you also not? I believe you spoke on the Sanchez comment as well.
That's right.
That was it. Trying to rectify the shambles that was.
Yeah, we've done GB News a few times. Yeah. We've done the Times Radio. So there's a few little things, and in the publications, I think they all feed off each other, don't they? This guy's well versed in that. He's been in that. Oh, we'll use him.
It's a trust element, massive.
Yeah, and I think if you appear okay, then they'll just say, oh, we'll have him. I don't think there's much more science to it than that.
I want to touch on YouTube. Ooh. It's a huge. From the outside, it's a huge part of your business. Yeah. 60,000 plus followers coming up to, maybe at the point of someone watching this, well over 700 videos you're approaching or would have surpassed. Yeah. Where did that all begin? Whose bright idea was that?
Lockdown.
Really?
Yeah, lockdown, because it was the only way we could communicate with people, realistically, with our faces. We couldn't see people in person. People weren't coming over. And we decided that we had to continue telling our story. So I wrote a book because I was bored stiff. So I wrote a little guidebook thing, which was good fun. But the main thing was, and it was a strategy we established with Alfredo, and we said, look, we've got to get out there, and we think that this is the future, because it became the future of viewings, or it became the current situation of viewings, because people couldn't get here. So what they were relying on was video viewings. They were relying on us going out there, the iPhone and a gimbal if you're lucky, and widescreen if you're lucky, and shooting houses. And that became the replacement for first viewings. And what we were finding was we were sending all the footage to the client. The client was then coming back saying, oh, I really like house 1 and house 2. I'd like to see them when I come over. And then if they were that well researched, they wouldn't bother coming over, particularly if they couldn't get here. They'd just say, I'll tell you what, can you go back and just do another video of that room and that room? I'll have it. And we sold a video in we sold a villa in La Zagaleta off the back of that at 5 million euros, off the back of a couple of dodgy videos on the iPhone. And it made us think, wow, this is really super powerful.
How far can this go?
Exactly. But what we were finding was that people were absorbing content, news content, in a different way. It was moving from traditional internet usage and traditional social usage to YouTube. And we were finding that people, particularly the Americans, were searching for things on YouTube. And so we thought, we've got to have a presence here. We've got to have a presence here. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. We had the barest amount of kit, but we did it, myself and Alfredo, we kind of did it together, and we started the carpools.
Yeah, which is great.
Because we just thought, if people can't get here, particularly people who've not been here before, there are lots of people who know the coast better than we do, but there are people like the Americans who don't know Alveria, they don't know Guadalmina. So we just got in a car, put the two-way camera on, shot a bit of B-roll, and we just drove around for half an hour pointing out the good, the bad and the ugly. And I think that's what worked. I think the fact that we were so candid meant that people, I wouldn't watch that. I'm sure you wouldn't. But if someone wants to know about Guadalmina and there's a half-hour video there going through every bloody street, you're going to watch it. You're going to love it, and you're going to find it incredibly useful. So that was, those videos were incredibly useful.
I think what we find is a lot of people get drawn into the cinematic.
Yeah.
No?
That's not us.
No. But what you give is pure value.
We try to, and I think there's always a temptation to go a little bit.
Of course,
more
there is, and the lavish.
We've done a few sort of lighter-hearted things, but fundamentally, we always try and bring it back to the basics. The problem is that everyone's doing it, so you've always got to think of new things, and a lot of people have copied us, and that's fine, that's great. But we just try and remember who we are, and the fact we've never done jumping out of helicopters and doing the Ferraris and the high heels, not me anyway. It's because that's not what you get when you come and meet us.
No,
do you know what I mean? We're pretty straightforward, honest, consultative people. So we try and make sure our videos reflect that, and not something that we're pretending to be.
Yeah. How do you deal with having 60,000 followers is huge in relation to a business's YouTube? The views are astronomical, really, once again, for a specific niche industry, such as real estate on the Costa del Sol. there has to come with negative comments on the posts or the negativity. How do you handle that?
First time is horrendous. It's almost like a crippling,
Yeah.
like, oh, how dare you stab me.
Yeah.
But you have to get over it. And this is where Darren's been incredibly helpful, my COO. I brought him in from a TV background, basically. So he's presented on all sorts of TV channels in high pressure situations, live TV. And he was brought on board to take a lot of the strain from me, but also to up our game on the video side. And he's been really useful when it comes to that, because he says, oh, you know, he's told me some horror stories about people who've said stuff about him, and it's awful. And you think, why do people do this? What kick do they get? But you just have to crack on through it and ignore it and delete them from YouTube or block them or whatever you can do, and just forget about them. Just forget about them. And he said, look, if people are bad mouthing you, or if people are, and we don't get many, it's a handful, but if people are negative about you, it means that there's far more people who like what you're doing. It's just a numbers game. And, you know, it's one of those things, just got to take it.
700 videos is incredible, right? And I think a lot of people fall foul to the fact that they want to set up a YouTube channel, they've done 2 videos, and then they're saying, well, there's no results here. And I try and say, hang on. Was there ever a point where you thought, there's a lot of effort here for not much joy?
It is a lot of effort. And again, you've got to be sure that you're not being self-indulgent. So easy to do. But what we noticed, and this is where it's very hard to quantify the success of it, really, because you don't know where the client, you don't know who's watching. That's the thing about it. You've not got 100 people in an audience where you're selling to them. You haven't got a clue who's watching. And we just noticed that we get a phone call or an email from somebody in London. Hi, Sean. Hi, Darren. Just been watching your videos for the last 6 months. Doing a great job. We're coming over next week. We'd like to buy a house in La Zagaleta. Any chance you can help us?
Unbelievable.
By the way, how was the house move? And you're like, what the hell has just happened? And when you talk to these people, it's almost like they feel they know you.
Yeah. Which is,
because they've watched you maybe 100 times on video, and they've thought, oh, we like this guy. Yeah, he'll do for us. Yeah, we'll give him a shout. You know nothing about them, but they have decided that, all being well, you're the guy for them. That's incredibly powerful, and that's come from video. But you don't know. And as I say, you know, we'll do a great video. We'll put it out there and think, great, it's going to be people who respond to this. Nothing happens. Yeah. But then 12 months later, you'll talk about it with a client who's not come to you from video. He's come to you off maybe a Google ad or something like that. And he'll say, oh, I saw that video you did with Oliver. That was really useful. And, oh. So, and I always say, oh, you're the one. But you just don't know. You just don't know. And that's the fun part about it. And I think particularly we got a lot of clients from the States and Canada, because I think the video stuff is, certainly the long form stuff is more useful for them because they don't know the areas as well. So yeah, it's incredible. I haven't got a right or wrong answer to it. It's just, you just got to keep on going and see where it takes you. But I think you've got to work out what your offering is in terms of style and content. No point replicating somebody else. I couldn't replicate the amazing work that Dramelia and Solvilla do. I haven't got the money for it, and it's not me. So I would rather do it a different way and get my tribe. And the tribe that we get tend to be quite reflective of our personality and our background, which is great. And that's why it works.
You have actually, I mean, you have invested a good amount of money in building your own Cloud9 studio.
Yes.
To be fair.
Yeah, but we got an opportunity when we took over the entrance of Monte Mayor, where I happen to live. It's a terrible commute to work. We had a little space there, which was ideal as a studio. And I said to Darren, here you go. Here's your space. Yeah. Crack on. And he's done a great job.
Efficiency wise, it must be a huge help just to go down, or let's say someone asks a question, you go, right, we can just go down and answer it. Absolutely.
You know, if there's a bit of legal stuff that comes up and we want to tell our audience about it, we can do it within seconds. We don't have to hire a space. So yeah, that's been a great help.
So what does the future hold?
Honestly, I don't know. And I know that's a bit of a weird answer because a lot of people have their things mapped out. I think in life, you never know what's around the corner. I mean, I had my midlife crisis in 2011, well, building up to 2012. And we had a year back in the UK, which was a lovely year to be back in the UK because it was the Olympics and the Jubilee and all that. But it was a really tough time in terms of mental illness. stuff like that. So it was very, very challenging, and I was battered and bruised after that. So I don't, I think having come back to Spain in 2012, December of 2012, so I've been here 13 years, the second time around, and I think you look at a place with fresh eyes, and I think sometimes you've got to step away from somewhere to appreciate it, which is what we both did. But no, I mean, I was literally, when I came back, it was a very, very difficult time. And I think you learn from experiences like that you can't take anything for granted. You don't know what's around the corner. I can make plans, and I'm if anyone's ever seen me on a flight back to the UK, they'll know that I use that time to shut out the world and write business plans and do all sorts. I did one once, and there was a guy, I was on the way to Liverpool for a football match, and there was a guy sat next to me, and I was doing some figures and projections. Hey, you're doing all right, aren't you?
I love it.
Just kick your nose out. But, I always try and see what's around the corner, see if I can second guess things, and you can't, and I try things, there might be 10 things I try and one works. Fantastic. And I think in the old days, I would have got panicky about that, thinking, oh my God, I failed at 9 things. But you know what? You've done really well at one, and you've made that a huge success, and take thanks in that. But look, I am very happy doing what I'm doing. I've got Darren on board now, who's a huge support. I don't think I'll go on much longer. No, I don't think I'll go on sort of being as front facing forever. I think my time will come where I just start taking slightly more of a back seat. But I still have loads of ideas, and so no one can shut me up completely yet.
What I want to know is if you could go back to your younger self in that all boys school, and you could give him one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't panic.
I like that.
Yeah, just
is that through life? Is that through tough moments?
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it was only when I hit the age of 50, and I'm 56 now. It was only when I hit the age of 50 that I actually became a confident person. And I think that's because I did have my little midlife crisis and stuff like that. So I learned a lot during that time, and I came out of it probably a more rounded, nicer individual. So if somebody had said to me, do you want kids? I think up until the age of 50, no. When I hit 50, I was kind of like, do you know what? I kind of got my head sorted. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. It's not perfect, but and that was probably the only time in my life, and I lost my parents around that time, and I thought, I think that's a big moment as well. When you lose, when you're next, it's kind of like, big moment. And that's the only time I felt mature enough and sort of knowing myself enough to probably say, yeah, I would have kids, but I was too old.
Now I'm trying to convince you to get a dog.
I know.
That's tough enough.
I know. My goodness, I want a dog that doesn't wee.
That comes and knows where to wee.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can speak English.
Yeah.
The list goes on.
Of course.
Sean, thank you so much for coming on, for your candor. I must admit, it was someone that was very high up on the list to have a chat with.
But not first.
I didn't know if we were a big enough fish for you to come and speak to. That was my worry. I thought I'd better get a bit of practice under my belt before I sit opposite you. But thank you so much. And I think honestly, what you do, I'm a huge fan of YouTube, of the way you operate. And you're definitely a respected figure in my eyes.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Thank you.